Chapter 1, The Bataks. Economic life, villages and houses. The Bataks live everywhere. In large villages, Toba Huta, Karo Huta. The villages, especially in Toba, formerly were fortified with earthen and bamboo walls. Entrance to a village was effected through a narrow doorway in one of the walls. In Toba, the village consists, as a rule, of 6 or 7 houses and some sopos council houses. The house and the sopos are placed in 2 rows opposite one another, and in the center is a rectangular enclosed space alaman. Among the Karo, the village is built up slightly more irregularly. Among the types of houses listed are dwelling houses, rumah, the young men's houses, jambur, different forms of buildings for the keeping of rice and structures, where women grind the rice. Sometimes there is a smith perpandan as well as a schoolhouse, keriton. Normally, there are 8 families jabu in one house. In the northern parts of the country, due to the rigor with which sexual avoidance customs are maintained, boys above the age of 10 and widowers are forced to spend their nights in the suburbs. In the south, unmarried girls also either guarded by the Raja or sleep in the separate house, Bagas Podoman, where they are guarded by a widow but are allowed mere visitors. The dwelling houses vary considerably. Like all Batak houses, they are built on piles 3 to 6 feet above the ground. Thus, of sheaves, and wealthy people are usually of wood and are roofed with sugar palm fiber ijuk with wooden planks. The construction of the roof is especially involved and slopes inward towards the center with a saddleback bed, the points often being decorated with buffalo horns. The roomy interior of such a house is to separate into compartments of walls, although it is commonly inhabited by several families. Mats, which are let down at night, form a particular separation. There are from 4 to 6 open fireplaces in the large houses. The smoke from this is permitted to find its way out to the roof. Since there are no windows or doors to the houses, they are very dark inside and covered with soot. In Karo, however, there is a door at the front and one at the back. The dwellings of the Raja, the dwellings of Rajas, are constructed from elaborately carved planks, which are painted with figures. In Toba, besides the dwellings houses, there are rice granaries and communal or young men's houses sopos. The appearance of the granaries does not differ from the houses of the common people. Every village has at least one sopo in its center and sometimes a second sopo if the village houses an important raja. These sopos surpass the dwellings of the chiefs in size and splendor, especially in the rich relief and floral designs carved on the roofs. They differ from the houses of chiefs insofar as all 4 walls are open, the house having side walls from 3 to 3.5 feet high. On both sides of the entrance of a sopo are rest benches which serve as sleeping places for the village men and their visitors. All sopos have an upper room solar, which is used as storeroom for harvesting utensils and as an extra dormitory. Every village which has 2 sopos has one of them dedicated as a religious workhouse, as well the single sopo serves this additional purpose. In the solar are kept both the village jewelry and the religious paraphernalia, the skull of a steady enemy, the jawbones of a carabao, the ashes of a burnt child preserved in bamboo cokers, the sacred writing inscribed on bark or bamboo, and the war standards. The entire safety of the village depends on the proper safeguarding on these objects. In the lower room of every sopo is kept the kettle drum, banquet, which serves to summon the inmates of the village to feast or council. The houses of a village are quite barren of furniture. Above each fireplace there is a scaffolding para. There are 3 levels to a para, one for ground rice, another higher up for cooking pots and utensils, and of the top and on top the firewood is kept. The utensils kept within the house consist in part of 1 earthen pot, of which every family owns from 3 to 6, 2 bamboo water reeds from 3 to 4 feet long, in which the drinking water is kept, and which serve at the same time as drinking cups. Small knives with wooden hand grips, whose blades are inserted between 2 wooden fangs and fastened with string. Small conical baskets woven from fine split bamboo, rods serving as containers for cooked rice. 5 responders made from tree trunks. The trunks have 1 or 2 holes in which rice is pounded with wooden rods and thus freed from the husk. Formerly, bamboo cookers were kept in the house for cooking rice, and leaves and coconut shells were used instead of dishes. The entire floor of the house usually is covered with mats, with the exception of the cooking place. Mats also are hung along the walls, and smaller mats are used as chairs. Only the wealthy have chairs or trunks. Other, others roll up their positions in mats. Mats are woven from pandanus leaves, tapa, or rotan. 8 banana wood torches are used for lighting the house. Prior to Dutch sanitary measures, the Batak villages and houses, similar to Indonesian conditions elsewhere, were hardly appetizing places of abode from the viewpoint of the white man. Chicken lived, or at least brooded, in the house itself in little conical baskets. Pigs roam freely through the village and serve as scavengers. Thus Neumann describes early living conditions among the Bataks. No matter what Batak building one sees, one obtains a feeling of repugnance. The houses are all equally unclean. Soot covers the walls and ceiling. The corners are full of cobwebs. The walls are smeared with chalk, and the floor is covered with seaweed juice and chicken excrement. The houses are like caves. The houses are like caves into which the openings in the walls scarcely admit a ray of light. When the houses are filled with smoke, one asks oneself how human beings can live in them. It is almost impossible for a human being to spend a night in one of them, for centipedes and scorpions wander about freely. Ants build their runways and make their way across the natives. Cockroaches fly around unmolested, and lice lurk overall. One really cannot sleep in such a house. The Bataks themselves are accustomed to their environment. Food. The economic seats of the Bataks are more numerous than one would accept among such a primitive people. Agriculture is by far the most important. With few exceptions, every Batak is an agriculturist, even though he has other occupations as well, such as smith or lumberman. Rice is the most important crop raised, being cultivated both in flooded and in dry fields. Maize is the second cereal of importance cultivated by the Bataks. This grain plays a prominent part in the agriculture of Padang Lawas. Other cultivated plants are potatoes, taro, yams, leguminous plants, and various other vegetables. Coffee, tobacco, coconut, cinnamon, sugarcane, and indigo are also raised. The Bataks raise crops only for their own needs, and there is little or no export. The chief instruments of agriculture are the plough tingala, the long pointed stick with which one works the ground and cull, and the harrow roka sabi sekel. The digging stick perlebeng also is used in the highlands. A second important means of subsistence is cattle raising. The Batak horses are famous, especially those of the Karo Highlands. The horses are raised for sale, but are not ridden by the Bataks themselves. Buffalo and other cattle are very numerous on the plateaus, but Padang Lawas raises the more cattle. Milk is partaken of in toba, contrary to usual Oriental habits, but neither butter nor cheese is prepared. Pig breeding by Christian and pagan tribes furnished a short while ago a very common source of income. Hunting and fishing are of lesser importance. The gathering of grass products, and during modern times, the planting of rubber and benzoin trees in some districts is quite prevalent. The Batak eats twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. Formerly, all food was cooked without salt, which was both rare and dear, and was to be found only in the houses of richest people, carefully wrapped up in leaves. In Toba, Spanish people lasyak almost entirely took the place of salt. The seafood is rice, and under normal circumstances, this is to be had in abundance. The seafoods of the Batak are, in order, rice, yams, and taro. Taro is as a rule only eaten by the poor. At times of scarcity, the rice is mixed with maize and thus eaten. In the complete absence of rice, the people help themselves to all kinds of root foods, eatable, eatable leaves and fruits from the brush. They especially fall back upon sago. A regular meat or fish diet is unknown to the Batak. When lucky, they may kill a deer or boar in the hunt, or catch a small freshwater fish, a rat, a bat, or perhaps a leguan. Eggs are almost never eaten, and chickens are consumed chiefly after a chicken fight. The poorer Batak is then glad to obtain a wing or black. Upon special occasions, chickens, dogs, pigs, cattle, or carabao are killed and eaten. The festivities include the leading of the bride into the home of her future husband, changing of dwelling place, the finishing of a new house, the visit of strangers, especially when these include important shifts, great gatherings and consultations in the suppos in order to start war or conclude peace, and the burial of ships. On minor celebrations, chickens and dogs are killed, pigs and cattle being reserved for the more important feasts. The meat from the animals slaughtered is never sold or preserved, but is divided among the guests. Everyone receives his or her appropriate share. The poor perhaps only an ear, the tail, or a snout. Human flesh has never been consumed at festive occasions, nor treated as a regular article of diet. The Bataks eat frogs, field mice, insect larvae, and flying wild ants. They are not averse to eating elephants, bears, tigers, apes, and even snakes. Jungun states that there is no form of animal as long as it carries meat on its bones, which is which is not eaten by the Bataks. They even have no horror of putrid meat, and dogs which suffer from skin and disease and no longer can walk are killed and eaten. The customary drink of the Bataks is water. In former times, the water source had to lie within the village fortifications and hence usually was polluted by the livestock. Palm wine is also consumed, either sweet or fermented, but not to the point of intoxication. Siri chewing is universal, both for men and women. Tobacco is smoked in considerable quantities, even by children, but the women do not smoke. Among the Karo, tobacco is smoked rolled up in leaves. The toba use copper pipes. Clothing. and decorations. The clothing of the Bataks has been considerably influenced by the Malays. Formerly, the nationality and rank of a Batak could be determined from the color and adornment of his attire, which was made from native cotton, spun, woven, and dyed in their homes. The colors used were blue, black, and red. Yellow dye was employed only on the coast. Tapa clothing was worn only by the poorest people and consisted of a girdle around of the limbs and a jacket covering the breast. In most places in Batakland, the old style of clothing is worn only on festive and official occasions, and otherwise handed down on heirlooms. The chief piece of Batak clothing is clothed around the limbs and hanging to the feet, but both the men and women. Among the Karo wear a head covering, but the Toba women go with their heads uncovered. Cloth wrappers were used in former days to protect the upper portion of the body, but now various kinds of jackets are coming more and more into use. Besides these articles of clothing, which everyone wears irrespective of rank, the Rajas adorn themselves with specially worked tunics decorated with glass beads. The distinction between Karo and Toba Bataks may be seen at a glance. The national color of Karo is blue, dark red in wartime, while the Toba dye their clothing down. The women still keep to these colors. The Karo women part their hair and bind it in a knot of the back of their heads. In Toba, the knot of hair is allowed to drop down in the loop above one ear. The most distinguishing feature, however, of both Karo girls and married women are the heavy live-form silver earrings badung. While a Karo woman puts aside all the jewelry after marriage, she continues wearing this. The weight of these heavy adornments is worn chiefly by the head covering. The Toba Raja wears as a mark of rank the elaborate tunic and arm rings made from the giant muscle, Tridayana gigas, or of ivory. Since rank is handed down from father to son, many a poor man who no longer owns a square foot of ground nor the elegance of a single subject still continues wearing this insignia of office. The arm rings are also worn by the Rajas of Nias and the Batu Islands. The Toba virgins wore in former days copper wire rings around the neck, the forearm, and the ankles. Elderly women, in the rare case that they still were virgins, were not allowed these ornaments. The richer the parents, the more numerous were the neck decorations of the daughter, and the higher the bride price demanded. Male children also were allowed this decoration. Artifacts. As among many African peoples, the smith has a peculiar position among the Karo. One cannot say that he belongs to a special rank, but yet he is always diligent and a man of importance. They are gold, silver, and iron smiths. While anyone may learn the profession, it is customary for a son to follow in the footsteps of his father. The instruments only may be inherited and not sold. It is said that they demand the ownership of the son. To deny this claim of the sole tondi of the instruments would bring misfortune to their family. There is a special village smithy per Pandan for the ironsmith Pande, but the silversmith works in an outhouse of his own home. The entire workshop of the ironsmith and the implements are objects of religious veneration. They are secret names of the implements which are known only to the smith, and sacrifices are given at times of sickness. by those people who come much into contact with iron. The red and the black chicken is the usual sacrifice. War weapons are very much the same throughout Batak land. In the works observed by the whites, the Bataks made use of old model firearms. Thrusting and striking weapons consisted of lance, spear, sword, and chopping knife, klewang. A wide variety of knives were used in war as decorations and as tools. These weapons, however, were not very deadly in the hands of the Bataks, as hand-to-hand conflict was rare. In former days, the bow panah and arrow saw, the sling kalim bawang, and the shield ampang-ampang were used in war. These weapons now are either playthings or handwritten curiosities. The blowpipe L-tap is used often in hunting small animals, especially birds. It was never used by the Bataks in war. The arrows of the blowpipe nangkat are sometimes poisoned. The weapons of defense consist of the usual Indonesian foot tangles, batu, ranjo of pointed bamboo, and the more or less permanent fortifications, kuburan, of embankments and ditches. While the musical instruments of the Bataks are similar to those of the Japanese, they are employed mainly for religious purposes and not for enjoyment as in Java. The toba instruments are 1. The drum gontang. This consists of skin stretched over wood and is most widely used for all the instruments. It is kept in the sopo. 2. The copper gongs. These are similar to the Javanese. They are struck with a wooden hammer. They are used in the orchestra and also singly for exorcising evil spirits or to drive off wild animals from fields. Effusive possesses at least one. 3. A variety of clarinet song the Malay sectum. 4. A small violin with 2 strings, which gives a pure but very harsh sound. Harwap, Malay, harabab. These last 2 instruments are seen only in Toba. They give musical notes somewhat similar to the Chinese orchestra. The Karo orchestra, which is not as complete as the Toba orchestra, consists of the 3 drums kendang, a large and a small gong, and a clarinet. The Karo also use a metal mouth harp, made from the center of the palm leaf, flutes, and string instruments, one being a variety of violin and another of mandolin. In the central Batak land, a wooden silopon garatung is employed. Music and dancing always go together. The dance, as practiced in Indonesia, is simply a moving up and down of the body, accompanied by moving and turning of limbs. In Timur, mass dances are held at the time of funerals. Tobacco pipes are a peculiar Batak artifact. These pipes and the practice of smoking them the entire day are as characteristic of the natives of the highlands of Toba and as inseparable from their persons as the keys from the Javanese or the horse from the Mongol. The poorer natives are content with bamboo stems, wooden pipes, but all other men have copper pipes at least a half foot in length. Rajas own several copper pipes apiece, and one pipe, 3 to 4 feet long and weighing over a pound. These giant pipes are constructed from several pieces of copper and are too heavy to hold, being smoked with the bowl sitting on the ground. Phallic human figures are carved on the pipe similar in form to the idols of Nias. The copper from the pipe industry is obtained by trade. The pipes themselves are manufactured in the district of Toba. In former times, money was unknown to the Bataks, the use of money being a non-Indonesian trade, and trade was conducted entirely by barter. As an aid to in exchange, use was made of pieces of iron and tin. Scales and wigs were not employed by the Bataks or other Indonesians, nor were instruments of measure. Resource was made to the parts of the body. The Bataks were lacking in sundials or other simple devices for determining the equinoxes. The people could tell the time to the half hour by measuring with an arm the angle between the sun and the horizon. Religious artifacts are everywhere similar both in form and use in Batak land. They all they owe their origin at least to Hindu influence. 1. Pustaka divination books are usually written in Timur October dialect. The books are made from the bark of the alim tree and also of silk. The pages are treated and made smooth with rice water and then glued or sewn together. The writing is done with brass and ink. The books contain various kinds of divination formulae and Kabbalistic designs. 2. 2. 2. Tungkat, the so-called magical staffs. These are of two varieties. A. The tungkat malihat, or smooth staff, with only an image of the upper end. B. Tungkat panaluan. These are entirely covered with human and animal figures except at the lower end. 3. Perminakan. Little pots, some of wood, other of clay, containing a brew, preferably made of parts of the human body, called pupuk. 4. Various divination objects stamped in figures of the determination of ominous times and calendars pekatan for determination of days. 5. Penguru balang or stone idols located in the grass near villages. Games. Although the Bataks are a merry and joyous people, and given to frequent feasting, they appear to lack indigenous games. This lack of games apparently in an Indonesian trait, and one which I observed likewise in the Mentawei Islanders. The exchange of riddles and puzzles is a favorite form of amusement, and one used also in courting. The games played by children are usually those of skill, including some battles with lances. Fencing, dancing, music, and song are the few amusements possessed by the people. Chess, dice games with count dice, and chicken and bird fights are of foreign origin. Daily life. A good description of Toba daily life is in the first part of the 19th century is furnished by Jong Hun. The Batak woman rise early before sunrise. They first go to the watering place to fill the empty bamboo gates with fresh drinking water and also to wash and bathe. On returning with the filled bamboo gates, which they carry in a bundle under their arms, the business of rice pounding commences. In regions which are poor in rice, one half maize is mixed with the rice. The rice pounding is performed by the woman at daybreak. It is also this time the remainder of the village bestakes itself to life. The men now arise from their mats and go to the bathing place. Soon after sunrise, the selling of the rice is finished and the pots filled with the cereal and water are placed over the fires to cook. The fires are lit with flint and stone, and then the men will have nothing more to do but light their pipes and go to work and talk before the houses of the Raja. Then they have a bit to eat, or this only in Toba, a bamboo full of milk. Tobacco smoking in Toba takes the place of siri chewing, which is only done on the coast, where the siri and betel grow in abundance, and gambir is easily brought. Now at about 7:30, the day work really begins, which in all regions except Toba is almost equally divided between the two sexes. For more field work falls to the men, while the women are kept busy inside of the village. In Toba, however, the women do almost all the work, in the house as well as in the fields. They really are the darkness of the house. These men smoked tobacco out of their big copper pipes, whilst the children really played the game, really played it with them, held councils in the sopo and conduct work. The building of houses and the cutting down of trees for the houses are about the only varieties of work which the men perform in time of peace. Among the other divisions of the Bataks, the men go at this time out of into the fields ladang in order to perform the necessary work, especially the heavy work of laying out the plantation, cutting both the trees, charring off the debris left by the fallen timber, digging up the ground, burning off the weeds, building the huts, and planting. While the men are occupied in the field, the women in toba, only those women who are left in the house, occupy themselves with household work of various kinds, with the wearing of fabrics, the plaiting of baskets, karong, or mats tika, out of banana leaves, or the preparation of dyes. The women also see to the cooking. At 7 o'clock, the animals, that is, the chicken and pigs, are fed by the woman with meat. The first real meal is eaten at 12 o'clock. In the morning, the Bataks eat only a handful of rice. All the people who do not own house in the fields, come back to the village for this meal. Then the people rest for an hour lying down on the mats. At 4:30 or 5, the work stops for the day. Rice is put to cook over the fire and a second meal prepared. The people tell stories until 7, when they spend an hour eating. Rajas and their wives do not field work, but have their slaves perform all manual labor. Although the rough outdoor work is always done by the men, the women do is in most regions do some of the works in the open, such as keeping the fields clean, pulling up weeds, gathering firewood, and picking ripe fruit. The fruit trees are always planted outside the villages. Wow! The Batak and the natives of Nias were by far the most warlike of the people of Sumatra. To the Batak, as to all very primitive people, strangers and enemies were synonymous, and hence direct contact with the outsider world was avoided. So great was the desire to keep away strangers, and so distrustful were the Bataks of one another, that paths were not maintained between villages, nor were bridges constructed. Due to this absence of inter-village means of communication, the Bataks of the interior lack many of the necessities of life, especially salt. The natives used even the reputation of cannibalism as a means of defense. So, for the eating of strangers, tended to keep aliens away. So this custom was not without its purpose. It appears to be the rule among all peoples of the earth that the frequency of warfare bears an inverse proportion to the severity of its consequences. Were it not for this wise regulation of providence, or perhaps human caution, the Bataks long ago would have become extinct, and this recent chapter would never have been written. Fortunately, however, these people had very strict rules that governing the conduct of wars. Most of the combats had the nature of ordeals, in which the first death or serious injury indicated the will of the gods and the rights and wrongs of the parties concerned. The main restrictions governing war were as follows: chiefs were not to be killed, and under all circumstances, the lives of women and children were to be spared. A declaration of war had to be made before the opening of hostilities. Cultivated fields were considered sacred and were not molested, and among the Karo a chapter town was later sacked and destroyed. Territory could never be taken away from its rightful owners, even when these had immigrated in order to avoid the yoke of the conquerors. It was not until the Padri's wars, until the Padri wars, but the fanatical Mohammedanist Minangkabau came up into Batak territory to convert or destroy, that the Bataks learned the real meaning of war. Then, for the first time, defenseless women and children were sold into slavery. The tax was applied to towns and granaries, and fields hitherto sacred were ruthlessly destroyed. Nevertheless, was taste by the Bataks themselves was far from being a native form of sport. While war prisoners legally were supposed to be held until ransom. When that feeling ran, when that feeling When we're feeling run high, they were eaten, scalped or beheaded. The skulls and bundles of hair were then kept, the first in the sopos, and the latter were sold back to the family of the beheaded. This happened where the people became angry at insults offered to the children, to the chiefs. The usual cause which led to war among the Bataks was the contraction of debts, mostly gambling debts. When the debt was not paid within the specified time, the creditor had the right to seize the debtor. If the latter belonged to a different town and his Raja refused to surrender him, war followed. The injured Raja formed a federation with his neighboring chiefs, attacked the town of this opponent, and were successful, took the cattle and made slaves of the survivors. Other, other causes of war were personal insults to the Rajas, village border disputes, and especially theft. When the thief belonged to an alien village, and the Raja of this village refused to surrender him and make good the damage. The ambition of the various Rajas and the jealousy which existed between them, creating envy and hatred, often was the real motivating cause of the incessant warfare which racked Batak land for centuries and kept the population far below the number which could have obtained support of the fertile lands. War was always declared in a routine manner. After casus belli had occurred, the gift Raja invited the friendly chiefs of the district to a conference in the Sopo. A cow or buffalo was slaughtered, and all the Rajas partook. Every chief who was present at the feast had to be of friendly intercourse with the hostile village, under penalty of being treated as a traitor, even though his own subjects took no part in the war. In Toba, this conference of chiefs was called Pigi Ginger, because the meat eaten was seasoned heavily with ginger. On the day in which the buffalo was slaughtered, and the decision to wage war entered up, all communication with the hostile village was ended. All the towns concerned in the dispute put themselves in the state defense palisades, were renewed or bettered, bamboo lances were pointed and distributed among the people, and powder was manufactured. Lookouts were posted and armed guards held themselves in readiness. War had to be declared in a formal manner. A village was to attack without warning. This would have been a robbery and not war, and would have been punished as such. Enough discussion took place beforehand between the opposing and the natural Rajas, so that the oncoming war surpassed on one. The declaration of war took place in 1 of 2 days. The usual war, the usual way was to hang up the so-called pulas in the neighborhood of the hostile village. The pulas consisted of a piece of bamboo on which a letter in Batak characters was written, on the same piece of rope on which the first piece of bamboo was hung. Another piece of bamboo cut in the form of a knife was attached, and also a piece of ketila, fruit in the form of a human head, and finally a piece of half-charred wood as a symbol of murder and assault. The context of the letter, the ultimatum, gave the debtor 3 or 4 days in which to pay his debt. After that, the consequences would be on his head. The second way in which war was declared was the so-called Sampah hike. The person entrusted with the declaration cried out the true or pretended grievances in the open, amid the firing of about 10 shots. There were no other formalities, and the parties of the opposing side were presumed either to have heard the shots or to have been informed about the matter to a third party. But, as we have said, an oncoming war took no one by surprise. In consequence, on the declared state of war, the natives of the hostile villages did not dare venture beyond the fortifications unless armed and in sufficient numbers either to walk the fields or visit other villages. Both sides now attempted to cut off stragglers. When these when these were not killed on the spot, they were brought home and put in the block in the sopo. They were kept there as hostages in order to force the opposing side to surrender. Since these unfortunates sometimes were kept in the blocks for years, being neither able to stand up, to sit, or to lie down, their feet wasted away from non-use. Also, if the hostile side committed any atrocity, such as cow stealing or murder, one of the captives was killed and eaten in revenge. As the war progressed through a number of years, the number of the atrocities increased, as did the retaliations, and effects became more and more embittered. Finally, no one dare any longer work in the fields. Large tracts of land became wasted, and the necessities of life were at low ebb. Then, and not until then, was the overthrow of the hostile village decided upon, and all who could bear arms were summoned for the assault. Attacks on villages took place usually between 10 and 12 o'clock at night. The entire adult made the entire adult male population took part in such an assault, leaving only the women and children behind to guard their hometown with their bamboo spears. The chiefs carried the war banners which had been preserved for hundreds of years in the Sopo. If the village was captured, all the inhabitants were killed or taken prisoner, and the town itself in Toba was burned. Some of the prisoners were killed later and eaten. Among the Karo, wars seem seldom, if ever, to have arrived at a point where villages were captured and destroyed. Here the war was more of an ordeal, with both sides being supported by champions who were hired from afar. In the battle first the champions and the especially courageous people fought, and the remainder, armed with sharpened bamboos, joined in only if their side seemed certain of success. Otherwise they fled. The champions seem to have been more governed by religious emotions than by training as marksmen. A man would first pray and dance, then a sword was fired at random, and if the curse were just, it was believed that the battle would attain its mark. As soon as anyone was hit, by chance or otherwise, the conflict was at an end for the time being, and the divided party withdrew. Then the priest who had read the omens for the battle was put on trial for incompetency. When both parties were tired of war, they entrusted arbitration to a pair of neutral ships. Whichever party was declared guilty paid a fine, and Carabao were killed for a feast of conciliation. An oath of conciliation was sworn on the heart of a Carabao. Cannibalism. One of the most striking customs of the Bataks, and of the one for which they have acquired the most notoriety, is their cannibalistic propensity. The cause of the cannibalism is unknown, and its occurrence isolated. No Asiatic or Indonesian peoples are cannibalistic, and it is not until we arrive at New Guinea that we find a recurrence of the custom. It is an ancient custom here, first having been mentioned by Herodotus, later by the Arabs, and Marco Polo realized that the natives of Little Java ate their elders when they when these were too old to enjoy life. Some that has been cast upon this statement of the Venetian traveller, yet accounts illustrated with drawings of Papa seals and coming from the first 1,000 years of our era saw a cannibalistic rejoicing dance. Cannibalism may have persisted as a very old survival from the time in which the dark-skinned peoples passed to Indonesia and or it may have developed from the custom of head hunting. In Nias and elsewhere, the tainer of a head frequently takes a bite from the relic of his victim, and in New Guinea, the two customs are not entirely disassociated. Cannibalism persisted into the 20th century among the Toba, Pak and Timor Bataks, but the Cargo denied that they ever had the custom. While the Bataks enjoyed human flesh, preferring it to pork, the habit was practiced merely as a severe form of capital punishment and was not a frequent occurrence. Thus, during the 1.5 years which Chung Hun spent among the Bataks, there were only 3 cases of public cannibalism.
Cannibalism was practiced for the following causes. 1. When the commoner committed adultery with the wife of a Raja. A commoner in this case could not buy his freedom. 2. Traitors, spies, and deserters to the enemy were eaten. These criminals, however, could buy their freedom for 180 guldens in case 1 and 2. The other prescribed that the guilty party be killed by a lynch thrust before being eaten, but since the offended party was accuser, judge, and executioner, it often happened that some of the flesh was eaten and some of the blood drunk before the mortal thrust was given. 3 enemies were, were eaten alive when they were caught armed outside the village, and if their weapons had been used against the people of the village. If they if they were caught in the fields in peaceful occupation, they were held for ransom, enslaved or killed. Women and children were as a rule spared and never officially eaten. Jung-hun witnessed the official practice of cannibalism during his stay in Toba. When an enemy is captured, the day set upon which he should be eaten, then messengers are sent to all allied chiefs and their subjects, inviting them to be present at the feast. Hundreds of people stream to the village. The victim usually is taken out of the village, where the feast itself is held in the village. When this is large enough, the captive is now bound to a stake in an upright position. A number of fires are lighted in the vicinity, the musical instruments are struck, and all the customary ceremonials are observed. Then, the chief of the village in which the ceremony takes place draws his knife, steps forward, and addresses the people. For among the Bataks nothing is done, no matter of how evident a nature, unless all the reasons for the contemplated action are discussed beforehand. It is plain that the victim is an utter scoundrel, and in fact not a human being at all, but a big ghost in human form, and that the time has come for him to atone for his misdeeds. At this address, the people water at the mouth and feel an irresistible impulse to have a piece of the criminal in their stomachs, as they will then rest assured that he will do them no further harm. This is the expression of they themselves used to explain their cannibalism. According to their description, the pleasure which they feel satisfying their revenge in this manner, and the consoling quiet which it gives them is not to be compared to anything else. Although the knives, the Raja cuts off the first piece, which varies according to his taste, being either slice of the forearm of a cheek, if this be fat enough. He holds up the flesh and drinks with gusto some of the blood streaming from it. Then he hastens to the fire to roast the meat a bit before devouring it. Now all the remaining men fall upon the bloody sacrifice, tear the flesh from the bones and roast and eat it. Some eat the meat raw or half raw in order to show off their bravery. The cries of the victim do not spoil their appetites. It usually 8 or 10 minutes. It usually 8 or 10 minutes before the wounded man becomes unconscious, and a quarter of an hour before he dies. The remainder of the flesh then is cut from the bones and eaten that same day, and the skeleton buried outside the village. Among the pak the men cut off the head and hands of the victim and dance around the head, hacking it with their spears. The head and hands were then treated and later hung up in the sopo. False has shown the animistic motives here came to the fore. By eating an enemy, one obtains his soul qualities. Also by eating him, one identifies oneself with him and surrenders him his soul powerless to work further damage. Here also, as among other head hunters of Indonesia, preserving the head, the soul of the enemy becomes the servant of the victors. The Pak had a definite skull cult. The skulls of ancestors were preserved in the sopo. These skulls received honor and sacrifice, and hence their owners, the gods, were kept happy in the other world. But the skulls of enemies received no honor or sacrifice, and hence their gods were kept in a state of misery. In southern Batak cannibalism ceased when the people became converted to Islam. Formerly, when an adulterer or thief was to be eaten, his relatives had to furnish the salt sirah and the lime asam required to make the human flesh tasty. This was done in order to make the relatives show proper submission and to render certain that they would not resort to blood revenge. Under native adat, where cannibalism would in former times and in criminal matters capital, the blood relatives still have the duty of paying money, which is called sira asam, time reckoning. The toba have harvest years. The toba have harvest years and a moon year. The harvest year is reckoned according to the planting, the growth, and the maturity of the maize and the rice. The harvest period is called tahun jagung. The moon period tahun eme. The maize is planted and ripens in 3 or 4 months. The rice in 6 to 8 months, so that the years have 3 lengths. In daily lifetime is reckoned by these harvest periods. Under the town eme, however, the entire lunar is understood. The time from harvest to harvest of 12 months. Thus, the Bataks have a year of 360 days with 30 days to the month. The priest Datu takes astronomical observations and determines the position of the moon to get the scorpion Halanagodang in order to decide upon the beginning of each year. A short moon is inserted when necessary into the year under the name of Lobi. The division of the moon the division of the months into weeks and days is due to Hindu influence. The days are named from 1 to 7, the names being Sanskrit. For the reckoning of days and months an almanac, Pokhalaan, is made use of. This contains a table of 13 times 30 places and is engraved on bamboo. The sheaf used to which the almanac is put in the determination of lucky and unlucky days, again a Hindu belief. The day itself is not divided into hours, but time is ascribed relative to the position of the sun or, or, or of events which occur at customary intervals of the 24 hours. Thus, early morning is called when the cock crows. When the Batak evidently once had a good knowledge of astronomy, they have either forgotten it, or else the proper informants have not been examined on the subject. The Pleiades furnish the date for the sowing of rice. The evening star is utilized by palm wine gatherers. The Toba believe that the eclipse of the sun and moon are caused by the combat the champion of the sun, Lau, has with the champion of the moon, the Hara. As long as the eclipse lasts, the Bataks help with Lord Christ and firing the guns. At times of earthquake, the word Suhul is shouted from village to village. This word means sword grip and is used to remind the gigantic serpent Naga Paroha of the sword by which he is pinned under the earth and which is intended to hold him a fast prisoner.